Last week on Mastodon Spotlight, we were able to bring you the women's head basketball coach, Bruce Patterson, and we took a look at what's coming ahead for the women's team. On this week's edition, it's the men's turn. We have as our guest the head men's basketball coach, Doug Knoll, and we'll look ahead to see what's up in store for the men's basketball team in 2001 and 2002. Our topic once again today, men's basketball. Our show is Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, last week we had on the new head women's basketball coach here at IPFW, Bruce Patterson, and we took a look at what we hope will be an exciting season for women's college basketball. This week, it's the men's turn, and we welcome back to the program the head men's basketball coach here at the university, Doug Knoll. And Doug, believe it or not, we're getting ready for season number 3.
Yeah, we are. The first two went pretty fast, and you know, as you get older, time goes pretty fast. So, but we're looking forward to it, Mike. It's going to be struggle at times, difficult at times, but we're excited about the situation with Division I and our schedule, and so we're have been into it now for 2 weeks of practice and starting our third week. And if we can keep the injury bug from biting us too bad, we'll be ready to go.
If I can, Doug, for a minute, I want to digress and take a look back. You've had 3 unique situations in your 3 seasons here at IPFW. You came over from Spring Arbor College and a couple years ago and had a team that had 6 seniors and found out what Division II basketball is all about. They graduated. Last year you had no seniors. The transitional period obviously made things a little more, I don't want to say difficult, but interesting for you and Joe Pachota and Fred Andrews, your assistant coaches. But talk about the evolution of the Doug Knoll era from year 1 to year 2, and now as we get ready for year 3, because it's been day, night, and day again.
Well, you know, in the overview, it's been a little disappointing, I would say, from that perspective in wins and losses. The first year we did inherit 6 seniors, and anytime you have seniors on the club, you're a step ahead because you've got kids that have gone through the experiences, the ups and downs, and you've got some veterans. And we did a pretty good job. We were disappointed in the outcome, but at the same time we came within probably 6 points of having a winning record, so which would have been the first time in, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And that didn't happen, but we lost some close games down the stretch, and so we just continued on. Last year we were the youngest team in the GLVC. We brought in 6 freshmen, and with the limited recruiting budget we had, we didn't get the kids maybe that we needed to get to compete at that level. So it was a struggle pretty much the whole year. You know, we had kind of a couple bullets in the gun. And, you know, it was, but our kids battled, and I was really pleased with the kids we had as far as, you know, student athletes. We had almost a 3.0 GPA in the classroom. The kids went to class. They did a great job. And of course, we lost 15 games by 4 possessions or less. So, I mean, we were right there in about every game. I think maybe only 2 games we really gotten beat up pretty bad. And we led Ball State for 30 minutes. We lost to Southern Indiana, who was number 2 here, 110 to 108. Northern Kentucky, we had a 5-point lead with 3 minutes to go, and you know, their veteran team, you know, showed what, you know, how they needed to play down the stretch. So, you know, in retrospect, with the wins and losses, it has been difficult, and you get to a point where at times you think, and do I even know how to coach this game? But you look back and you say, you know, obviously when we're provided the tools, that's going to be a lot better. And so we've gone from doubling scholarships this year, almost to 11 full rides, and then next year we get 13 full rides. Now you say, well, that's great, but then again you turn around and look at the schedule we're going to play. And we can do one of two things, Mike. We can play the bottom teams of Division I, or we can try to improve our program and the ability of our players by playing as good a people as we can. And I think for the next 2 years, we're going to try to do that. I mean, you know, we can play a Savannah State, or we can play an Oregon State. And to me, I choose to play an Oregon State because we will be better for that. And I think that's what we've looked at. Obviously, you know, guarantee money is good for, you know, the athletic department and, you know, teams that we can play, that we can bring in some big contract money, go on the road some. But, you know, even the second year, we have 14 or 15 home games, so we've got probably more than half the schedule is home games next year, including, I think, maybe 6 at the Coliseum. So it's that little, you know, part of infancy where, you know, you crawl first, you walk, and then you run. And, you know, I'm convinced that, you know, once we get in a conference, once we, you know, figure out the direction actually that we need to go as far as scheduling, we will play still some of the big teams, but we'll sprinkle it around a little bit. You know, we've got to win some ball games, there's no doubt about it, but I think everybody's been very supportive. They've understood, you know, that, you know, you can't, you know, it'd be like Purdue or IU out of the Big Ten playing with 6.5 scholarships when everybody else has 13. That, you know, it's not going to happen. So, you know, for us now, you know, to have 5 scholarships in the GLVC or 13 in another conference Division I mean, it's night and day. And that's why we've been able this year to get a player who was on the Indiana All-Star team. We have 4 players that have Division I experience. And as we keep going, we're going to be able to recruit some of those kids. We've got a lot to offer here at IPFW, and we're excited about that.
Before we look at the roster, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Bruce last week. And that question is, what is the most enjoyable part that you get out of coaching, and what is the least enjoyable part?
Well, the most enjoyable part, I think, is you know, working with the kids firsthand. I mean, I think there's two areas to look at. One is the firsthand experience of practice and going through and helping kids graduate, you know, to be an integral part of society. You know, and having a hands-on with their lives, the struggles, you know, the good parts of it, you know, and it's a process. I mean, kids that come in from high school, in most cases, have, you know, been taught some life skills by their parents, and we try to take that and expound on that a little bit. But, you know, also having your former players call you all the time. Just got off of an email with one of my former players that you know, wants some tickets to Michigan, of course. So, you know, they're all now you know, call me a little more, but it's really nice to have them call you and say, hang in there after a tough loss, or great job after a win, or coach, you know, we just had our 3rd child, and you know, tell me a little bit about their family and how things are going to go, and that's the great part of it, is the relationships that you make as a coach with these players, and you go through and see them develop then after they graduate and you know, become fathers and teachers and coaches, and you know, anything for a number of doctors, that type of thing. The least fun part of it, I guess, I'm not really sure. I mean, you're going to have problems no matter what job you're in. You're going to have kids once in a while that do things that, you know, you're not happy with, or they make poor choices or something like that. So, you know, at times when you have to discipline, you know, where we've got kids that maybe make a mistake and they have to sit out or something like that is difficult. You know, I don't have any Monday mornings. You know, of course, we don't have a day off till the season's over, but we practice Saturday, we practice Sunday afternoons or Sunday evening. When Monday comes, it's just another day, and I love what I do. And I really love being here at IPFW. I'm excited. Division I was never something that I thought, you know, I can't live without that, because I really enjoyed coaching, and even at Spring Arbor, which was a small college. But we built our program up to the national level. And, you know, it'll be more difficult here, but also I think our niche will be getting into a league and then being very competitive in that league to the point where, you know, right off the bat, maybe we can get in the middle of the pack and then inch our way up. So, you know, everything about basketball, I mean, you know, I thank God daily that, you know, don't live in Afghanistan, or, you know, I didn't have direct people that were affected by, you know, September 11th and things like that. But we've had some adversity on our team with a player's father dying or a player's best friend passing away, and you know, those things you really look for strength from each other. But you know, I'm very fortunate. I've been very blessed. Obviously, we know it's going to be difficult because we're playing so many good teams and we are overscheduled. There's no doubt about it. And a loss is a loss no matter who you lose to. We need to win some basketball games. But I look at it more of a respect factor. We want to go into these games and compete at the highest level we can. You know, we want to be competitive, and when we get done with it, we want the other team to say, man, those guys worked really hard, and they respect our program, and that's what we're trying to do.
In retrospect, I know in previous shows we briefly touched on it last year, the major differences in not just coaching, obviously regardless of what level, be it NAIA, Division II, Division I, there are still X's and O's. There is still recruiting. There is still strategy, you know, the whole 9 yards, strategy and substitutions and player rotations and so forth. But now that you're in the swing of actually Division I, what's more difficult in the coaching aspect and what's not quite as difficult? I know one of the things that we've talked about in the past was you cannot go and see games now as a Division I coach, where you could before.
Live scout.
Yeah. What's easier and what's a little more difficult?
Well, I think it's easier because as you go up the ladder, you get more help. You know, if you look at Michigan State, I think they've got, you know, they've got 4 coaches, 3 assistants, and the head coach. Then they've got a director of basketball operations. Then they've got graduate assistants. Then they've got 12 managers. So, I mean, everybody gets a manager, you know, that's a player. And they're high tech. I mean, everything they've got is a basketball office like your studio here, so they can cut and splice and do everything they need to do. And so many people are volunteering, and they've just got a wealth of bodies. And you know, for us, it's a growing period. I mean, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're not going to be Duke overnight, and we're probably never going to be Duke. But at the same time, you put it in perspective, you know, what's important here. Dick Bennett, I think, summed it up really well when he said, the higher you go in coaching, the less you coach. And that is so true, because there's so many people and things pulling you, so many things you have to do within your program without coaching. And I find it very true, but that's why you have assistant coaches then, and that's why I've got 2 great coaches in Joe Pachota and Fred Andrews. You know, if I have to skip a beat with a recruit that I can sit and talk with while we're practicing, those guys jump in and they can coach. I mean, they do our practices. We sit down and meet and have organizational meetings, decide what we're doing in practice, watch film, watch tape. You know, I may have gotten 20-some letters out already today, just handwritten letters to recruits. That's one thing. We start looking at recruits right now as freshmen. We even get updates on who the best 7th and 8th graders are in the state. And obviously, you know, once they become freshmen, you know, we can send them a questionnaire, but we can't really write them until their junior year and then call them their senior year. But we've even offered some sophomores right now, offered them scholarships because we can't say who they are, but because we feel like this is what we need to do now to become a Division I entity. We've got to not necessarily just offer people scholarships or student athletes, but if we see somebody that we think is going to be really good, then we need to let them know that we're very serious. And we're going to offer more scholarships than we have, but it's kind of a first come, first served basis. Generally work on like 2.5 times. So if you have 3 scholarships available for, say, next year, you may offer like 8 different players that scholarship, and the first 3 that take it are the ones that's going to come into your program. So, we find out that in some ways it's more time consuming, but in other ways it's less. As you touched on, Mike, we can't live scout. Now, it would be hard for me to go watch Long Beach or Colorado State or Montana State or San Diego State because we just don't have the funds to go fly there and watch them anyways. But for instance, we play Tri-State and Indiana Tech, which is a couple of the non-division ones we play. Well, I could go watch them play, but we're not allowed to do that. So we take everything off tape, and obviously it's not as good as firsthand, but everybody's in the same position. So we don't have to, we don't bother ourselves too much with that. We just, the recruiting's a little different. We need to be at different places at different times in the summer with everybody else. And now we are recruiting against the Michigan States of the world and people like that. Their recruit who's maybe 4, 5, 6 on their depth chart, maybe 1 or 2 on ours, which is the difference in the in our level and their level, because you have high major, mid major, and low major, and we want to be in that mid major someday and push our program up the line. But there's a lot of different things that we have seen and still will see as we move along in this process.
Time for a break. When we come back, a look at the 2001-2002 men's basketball roster. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Frank Palladino has been a professor of biology at IPFW since 1982. He studies the endangered leatherback sea turtle and allows the opportunity for his students to travel with him.
We have a number of undergraduates as well as master's level graduate students who've come with me over the last 10 years to Costa Rica. It's an opportunity that isn't generally available at most institutions.
He makes sure his students in the classroom realize and never forget the enjoyable nature of science.
Science is not only fascinating, it's fun. I think we lose track of that when we're in school, that science is fun, we learn a lot, and can do a lot.
Palladino has a full awareness of the importance of the field work that his students experience with him and how it contributes to their education.
It's an invaluable experience, one which they can then use whatever job they go on to do. And professionally, it really completes their education as a biologist.
This has been an IPFW Faculty Minute. The right school, right here, right now.
You're looking at soldiers and their families. Citizen soldiers, members of the Army National Guard. They train part-time, building civilian experience, pursuing higher education. They serve our country and community in times of need. Join them. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD. Discover the part-time job with full-time pride.
In the Army National Guard, you can.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our topic this week is men's basketball, and our guest is the head coach of IPFW men's basketball, Doug Knoll. And Doug, we talked briefly about last year, but last year is over, and now we look ahead to this year. And as we out-cued to break, I said we're going to take a look at the roster, and we're going to do it in a unique way, I think. You said practice has been going on 3 weeks. It began at midnight on the 13th of October. Thanks to it being a weekend, the NCAA was nice enough to let us start early. And we're going to show some highlights from Midnight Madness. And we're going to get started, and I'll just let you take a look at the monitor, and we'll talk about it. We start off with a good crowd they estimated between 400 and 500 fans, and they had a lot of things going on with the fans. And at the stroke of midnight, you were kind enough to let the ladies take the floor first. And as I mentioned to Bruce last week, I believe it's the first time the women's program has participated in a Midnight Madness event here at the school. And then as you see here comes your ball club on the floor. Midnight Madness, what's it mean to you as a coach?
Well, not a lot. It means more to the the kids and the fans, and it's a good start. We're always looking at the fact that we need to get through Midnight Madness without any injuries, have kind of a festive atmosphere, and it's not bad. I enjoy being there and letting the kids do their thing for one night. We're definitely ready for practice the next day to start being serious, but we're really glad the ladies came out too. And the last 2 years I've been here, I think there was a small probation period the first year that they couldn't participate. They had to start like 2 or 3 days later than everybody else for something, and then last year evidently they had some finals, or there was a situation why they couldn't do it. But we did ask them both years, and I'm glad that Coach Patterson now and his team could come out, because it's all part of both teams and our basketball programs, and we support them very much. We're glad Coach Patterson and his staff are here, and we look for good things to come from them too. So our guys just I think they just have a time where they can be a little excited to kick basketball off, and then the realization of a 3:30 practice the next day sets in. But I think everybody had a good time.
I know you and Joe and Fred, you work hard and you work year-round, very little time off. What was it like for the three of you to finally be ready and able to blow the whistle and to be able to work with the kids, and not just in conditioning or running, but to coach basketball?
Well, that was, we were really looking forward to the 13th, where we could get the whole team out there, because when you recruit, you're recruiting for a long period of time, and then you get some commitments, and then you get people working and working together. Then you can go into 3- and 4-man workouts, but it's not until you get everybody out that first day of practice that you're with the entire team and the entire coaching staff, and then you say, yeah, finally, we can get started.
What we're seeing now is the introduction to the crowd of the roster. We missed a couple of players, and one was your son Brad, and one was Matt Shepard, a returning Letterman from last year. Okay, I didn't know we had gymnasts on the basketball team. At this
yeah,
point,
we're a little nervous with that too, Mike.
Go ahead, as you see the player comes out, talk about who he is and what you may think about what he can accomplish this year for us.
Well, I think we've had our seniors out and some of our juniors. This is Boubacar Jai. BB's from Cincinnati State Junior College, 6'10", and great addition to our team. Has to work a little bit on his skills offensively yet, but runs the floor well defensively, and as a presence has about a 7'1" wingspan. This is Jeremy King, a transfer from Owens Community College, and played for Dan Dockich at Bowling Green for 2 years. Gives us a lot of good athleticism at the wing. I think we've got Keon Henderson, who his third year, but actually he's a sophomore. Athletically, he was medical redshirt his freshman year. He's our high flyer.
We'll see him later on in the slam dunk
contest. We'll see him
contest.
later on. He's really getting stronger. He came in at 165. He's now almost 200. Jim Kesnick, 6'10", came in at about 200 pounds. He's 227 now, still a 4.0 in engineering, mechanical engineering, which is great. John Watkins, another Division I transfer, had to sit out all last year from DeKalb, 6'8". John's about 230, can play the wing for us, a lot of different positions, very versatile. And he's got to get back into the focus because he's been out a year. Lee Batts from Milwaukee, sophomore. He was a qualifier out of high school, real good student. Went to the Air Force Academy Prep School for a year first, and he'll give us some guard play, good minutes. Terry Collins, Fort Wayne Snyder, led the city in scoring. Went to Appalachian State for a little bit, set out. Obviously, he needs work on his dance routine, but Terry's going to help us, misses 9 games, and so we'll look forward to getting him back. Rick Wyan, here's our first Indiana All-Star from Franklin Central, 6'7", about 220, small forward. He's going to be a good player for us, very skilled, and we're looking forward to him. I kind of cringe here. Zach Reuter, 6'8", from Martinsville, about 230, freshman. Yeah, the next day he breaks his foot 45 minutes into practice, so we don't have him. And then David Simon, 6'9", 250, from Chicago, has to sit out this year as a transfer. We could really use him, but you know, he's going to practice well all year with us, and hopefully you know, get us better for the for next year. He's got 3 years.
And the person that came out first, as you see, the three-point shooting contest, was your most valuable player last year, Nick Wise, the senior from Plymouth High School via Ball State.
Yeah, and you know, Nick's now in his 3rd year with us, and you know, our 3rd year here, and Nick's just a guy that comes every day to practice, gets it done. You wouldn't know if he's sick, if he had the flu, you know, just whatever. I mean, Nick just brings that warrior mentality. You know, he's solid, he's skilled, and obviously he's excited about, you know, what's happening here, because he started off at Ball State and is going to finish with a Division I schedule. So we're really excited about that. And Matt Shepard's our other freshman, or other senior, I'm sorry, at 6'7", 245. So we only lose 2 kids out of our entire you know, 14 guys. And we're going to bring probably 3 new in, or 4, so we're looking forward to the future of IPFW basketball.
What you're seeing now, the three-point contest, and we just saw Brad Knoll, your son, win the men's side, and he's getting ready for the shoot-off. In fact, he just won the contest against the women. And you and I commented off air, he had 4 out of 5 shots both ways, or both times, to get in the finals and to win it. Slam dunk contest. I know on Midnight Madness you're concerned about possible injuries, but the fans loved it. And I think what we've got here is the entire competition. And
I hope we don't have to watch the whole thing, Mike.
Well, we're going to watch some of it.
Okay.
You're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly here.
There you go. This is David Simon. This is our 6'9" sophomore from Vernon Hills, Illinois. And really, we were fortunate to get David. Cliff Livingston, the former assistant of the Fury, told me about him. So, you know, he just brings a big presence. You know, he wasn't in shape coming in this summer, but you know, he's getting in better shape right now. And this is all a savings account for him this year. He doesn't get a paycheck. He doesn't get a play. But everything he does this year, he can stick it into a savings account and draw it out next year, and we're excited about that.
How much eligibility will he
He'll have 3 full years. And on the bright side, which I really love about these kids, David is a 3.6 GPA in chemistry, and just a great young man, very talented. And here's our 4-point student, Jim Kesnick, which he blew a dunk.
I said the good, the bad, and the ugly here.
Yeah, it's like Jim couldn't even jump on that one. But at 6'10", he can play the 4, he can play the 5, and you know, he's given us some good skill on the perimeter. Needs to still gain some weight, but Jim's got 3 years. So we are yet a very young team. I mean, when you really look at it, we do have 6 upperclassmen, 2 seniors and 4 juniors. But here's Zach Reuter from Martinsville, 6'8". We're not sure when we're going to get Zach back. If we get him back early December, we may, you know, just keep him on the team and the roster this year and play him, even though it's going to take a little while to get back. If it's late December, we'll probably redshirt him for the entire year, medical redshirt, and he'll still have 4 years to go. I really felt bad for Zebo because he broke his foot 2 years ago. The other foot, as a junior, he was hurt last year as a senior, and we just thought coming in he was going to really take off and do a great job as a freshman for us and get some minutes. But as fate will have it, first day of practice, he broke his foot, and so we're just going to try to get him back as quick as we can.
Let's see here.
Well, we kind of missed that one. D'Angelo Woodall's our point guard, and about 6 foot, but he can get up, and really he just kind of got the crowd going a little bit. He's going to be a great defender for us this year again. He's now a junior. Believe it or not, when he came in, he was about 150. He's about 170 right now. So all of our guys have done a great job in the weight room, putting a lot of weight on, a lot of strength, which is basically what you need at this next level. But I think here's our champ, Keon Henderson.
He's going to solidify his place in the finals with this dunk, and he is smooth. That's the word I used.
Keon is. He really, in fact, sometimes you don't think he's working that hard, and he really glides a little bit, and he just gets up so easy and effortlessly. His outside shot has improved. When he came here, he was 165 pounds, and now he's almost 200. He's done a great job in the weight room, and we've just been real pleased with him. He's an ordained minister. In fact, he did his first wedding here this summer, and so Keon's just done a great job, and I think him and David, I think, kind of had to square off in the last two guys to go into the dunk contest, so finish it up. But this is David Simon. And really, it's unfortunate that big guys, and this was a great dunk because he lost the ball and still dunked it, so that's how much power he has. But big guys don't look as good as littler guys dunking, so that's kind of unfair.
What I'm impressed with, his upper body, his shoulders, his arms.
And really, he hasn't worked on weights hardly at all, so we're going to be able to cut him a little more and sculpt him a little more. But
there's your champion right there.
That was kind of a nice swing dunk from the side, two-handed, and that was pretty good. And I think they asked him to do one more.
One more, yeah. I remember a couple of games we did, and that was we see as we're seeing the scrimmage that took place, and we got to throw the guy in the zebra shirt out after a while, but.
Yeah, that was kind of poor officiating.
You
but
got
I'm
that
not going
right.
to let him know that you were officiating,
Yeah,
Mike.
darn right.
But
I remember going back to Keon last year. There was one game, or there are two games that we broadcast on College 56 where he came in off the bench and supplied instant offense. One game I know you in the first half, 5 of 5, 15 points, and got the team fired up, got the crowd fired up, and if he can stay healthy, I think that's going to be some good things.
Yeah, and part of Keon was the mental toughness, and he's still working on that a lot, and we get on him a lot for that. But he has great strides, leaps and bounds, and he's going to play a lot this year, and hopefully he's going to stay healthy. But that's Jeremy King right there, taking it to the basket, and we've not worked a lot on anything as far as offense and defense goes. So it's kind of, what you see is what you get the first night, and just kind of. Pass it around, try to keep spacing, try to set some screens, and then just get up and down the floor, and that's really what we were doing.
Well, we saw a moment ago a shot of John Watkins. I know we had John on the program last year, and you're very, very high on him. The fact that he can probably play 3, if not 4 positions, and it'll be fun to see him on the floor and to see all these guys. The big guy. How do you pronounce? Which way you want to pronounce it?
We
again?
call him BB.
BB.
If you,
he's big.
He's pretty big. He's got a big wingspan, and obviously he has some ways to go offensively, Mike. But defensively, he has a presence inside. He can rebound. And scoring's a plus. So if he scores, we could bring Matt Shepard off the bench to the post at 6'7", 245. Matt just gives us some wide body inside to. We can use Matt's 5 fouls every single game. That'd be great. Zach Reuter was going to help us out in the post position as well, but hopefully, Zach's going to get well, and then we've got David Simon coming in next year too. So we think we've got some really good kids for the next few years.
You mentioned Terry Collins, and of course the fans here in Fort Wayne remember him from his days at Snyder. Is it a curse or a blessing? It's unfortunate he has to sit out and miss the first 8 or 9 games, but looking ahead, is that good or bad in terms of opponents' preparation? They're not going to see him. And what will Terry provide to this ball club once he's eligible to play?
Well, it's never good when you have to sit out, regardless if the teams in the second half of the year know what he does or not. They're going to know it anyways, and we're not having him for the big brunt strength part of our schedule, and so that's going to hurt a little bit. And we've really got kind of a 3-headed point guard with D'Angelo, Lee Batts, and Terry. They're all a little bit different. Terry and Lee are a little more of a combo because they can both shoot the basketball very well. And Terry is a true point guard, but we can move him to 2 because he shoots the basketball, like I mentioned, very well. In fact, this was kind of ironic, but I was in the Concordia gym Terry's junior year when he scored his 1,000th point. Actually recruiting another player, but watched Terry, and little did I know, 2-3 years later I'd be coaching him. But he is a talent. We were disappointed when he decided to, not stay in town. That didn't last very long, and we're glad we have him now. He's still going to be a freshman this year because of you know, some of the things that have transpired by not signing a national letter of intent, but he does have to miss the 9 games. But we will have him this year and then 3 more years, and hopefully that'll bring some excitement to the Fort Wayne area, having a hometown product. And we try as much as we can to get local kids if they can now play on the Division I level. John Watkins just hit a 3 right there.
Oh, that was smooth.
Played with Luke Recker. John was a sophomore then, went to Wright State and actually led them in scoring 2 out of the first 5 games. His freshman year has put on about 25 pounds since and can really help us out, you know, in those ways. So Terry and John are going to bring some Division I experience, as well as Jeremy King, and of course Nick Wise played at Ball State. So quite a bit difference from last year to this year with the talent level. And like I said, Rick Wyan was at Franklin Central, was an Indiana All-Star, and you know, we've got our first really 3 scorers back in Nick Wise, Brad, and Matt Shepard, plus D'Angelo Woodall, and Jim Kesnick and Keon. So we had a good nucleus back, and then we thought we added to it very well.
The scrimmage is almost over here, and the one thing that I also see, here we go, the last 4 or 5 seconds, athleticism, and you got a lot of talented athletes that you're going to be able to put on the floor this year. But that was Midnight Madness, and that's when the ball officially started rolling. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to look ahead to what's coming up for this basketball team, because the season opens up on November 16th. That's not far away. So we're going to take a break. Mastodon Spotlight will return in just a moment.
Matthew Shepard died after he was beaten and tied to a fence. 2 men have been charged. 1 pleaded guilty.
You know, my biggest regret after walking into the hospital and seeing him was I didn't tell him enough as a father that I loved him. The thing that I've learned most is that your son is your son and your daughter is your daughter, regardless of whether they're straight or gay.
A Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Tilk and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. An education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our topic this week is men's basketball. Our guest is the head men's basketball coach here at the university, Doug Knoll. And Doug, we had a chance to look at Midnight Madness. We've seen some of the players. We've talked about getting prepared for the start of the season. Now let's talk about the upcoming season. I mentioned a few moments ago, we kick it off Friday, November 16th. It's not that far away, at the Coliseum against Morehead State. Some people may ask, Morehead State, who are they? They're a very good, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere between a low to mid-major school that has as a head coach a player who has local ties. Kyle Macy, born in Kendallville, went to high school at Harding High, played at both Purdue and Kentucky, and spent 7 years in the NBA. The man knows a little bit about basketball. And talk about this season opener.
Well, all of our efforts have gone into, getting our schedule ready and prepare for this upcoming season. Obviously we thought initially, it'd be great if Purdue or somebody comes in like that, and that just wasn't realistic at this point in time. But we had Morehead State scheduled for somewhere in February, and we got to thinking, Kyle grew up here in town and then ended up going to Peru, where his dad coached him at Peru High School. But his dad coached at Indiana Tech for a while, and what better than to bring Kyle back as a former Mr. Basketball, went to Purdue for a year, Kentucky 3 years, and as you said, 7 years in the NBA and 3 years overseas. So has had a great career, and they were very excited to come back and be our first Division I opponent. And I think it's going to be, I've got to keep my blinders on because that's our first basketball game. We have to do everything to prepare, to be successful in that game. But outside of that, we've got a homecoming now. I think the first homecoming for IPFW. Get some fans excited, get some former students and alumni very excited. Have the basketball game. Then there's going to be a concert after the game with the group Generations, 70s, 80s group. So you've really got a big night of a lot of things, and obviously to us that basketball game fits in the middle there, and we have to concentrate on that. But we're very excited about that. 2 weeks from this Friday night, we kick it off. We've got a couple games in the Coliseum this year, quite a few more next year, and we don't know what to expect a whole lot because we've never played in there, but we know it's going to be exciting. We hope the fans come out, and we're really looking forward to getting going with our schedule this season, and that's a great game to open up with.
Before we move on to Game 2, I want to digress one quick moment. In preparation for the season opener, you've got a couple of exhibition games, and I want to mention that to the fans and the viewers. This Sunday, November the 4th at 3 o'clock here at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center, you take on Albion College, which is a very good MIAA team.
Right. Well, according to the rules, Mike, we can't play another Division I, so we have to either play lesser teams or teams in Division II, Division III, or travel teams. And it's been my experience over the years that with travel teams, sometimes you don't know who's going to show up. They never have a roster. They show up late sometimes, and so we just went ahead and said, let's get a couple really good teams. So this Sunday we play Albion College. They are in the MIAA with Hope and Calvin. It's a great league. I've known Mike Turner for a long time. They're very disciplined. It's probably the complete opposite of the way we play, but that's exactly why we're doing it. They're more of a slow-down team. We're more of an up-tempo team. We like to press and do some things. They'll execute a lot at their half-court sets. So that's going to be very good this Sunday, and then the following Saturday, we kick it off at 1 o'clock with our alumni playing, and we're very excited about that. We're bringing in a lot of our former alumni and old guys running up, or at least jogging up and down the floor.
Like me with the zebra shirt on at
There
Midnight
you go.
Madness.
And then at 3 o'clock we play St. Joe out of the GLVC. They were our travel partner, but Ken Carrillo's gotten the job there after Dave Balza moved on to Florida, and they were very good about coming over to play us. And so that'll be 3 o'clock, November 10th on a Saturday.
We're broadcasting that on College 56 Sports as well.
And we appreciate that, Mike. And then, we've got a week to prepare for Morehead State on a Friday night. And, once we hit the ground running, it's no looking back. And we're going to make every effort to just do as good as we can. We hope the fans understand, what this is all about. You just don't become a Division I and expect to be good. It's quite like an expansion professional team where they pick guys from every other team and kind of throw them in together. And we have 8 new guys, but we're trying to assemble a team of guys that have some chemistry, and it'll be a a struggle for a few years, but we're, like I said, we're playing as good a teams as we can, and we want to win every game. There's no doubt about it. But realistically, we just want to be able to compete and do some good things in these games, and have those other teams say, hey, if you're going to play IPFW, you're in for a ball game, and they'll give you a game. They'll work hard, and that's a respect factor that you can gain. And then, who knows, maybe if we could just get that one Cinderella game and knock somebody off, the phone will quit ringing.
One of the downsides of starting a D1 schedule is that the bulk of your games are going to be on the road. And after we open up with Morehead State at home, we're on the road for quite some time. November 21st, we go to University of Toledo, member of the Mid-American Conference. 3 days later, you go down to Dayton, take on Wright State. That ought to be interesting for John Watkins to play against his old team. Then you jump on a plane and go down to Florida, play Florida International on November 26th. Then the weekend of November 30th for the next week, to me it's the most exciting part of the schedule. On November 30th, we go up to East Lansing, play in the Spartan Coca-Cola Classic, and at 6 o'clock that night, who do we play but Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans. There will be another game the next night, but What were your first thoughts when this was finalized and, gosh, I get to coach up against a national championship coach?
Well, you know, I can really thank my assistant, Joe Pachota, for this one. You know, we know their staff very well. In fact, you know, I was in Spring Arbor for 7 years, just 30 miles away, would go up and watch practice, talk with the guys. In fact, some of the coaches came down and worked my camps. So we really have a good relationship with Michigan State, and I can't say enough about their program and what they're doing for us. I mean, this is a huge feather in our cap. They don't need to play us. I mean, there's 320 Division I's, and outside the Big Ten, they may have 12 games. And there's probably, you know, 250 teams that would love to play Michigan State and have the opportunity. And little IPFW gets a shot at them right out of the gate. I mean, we're not even full-fledged Division I. We're in the second year of our transition. But, you know, because they want to help us, they don't need this game against us, Mike. I mean, you know, but we definitely need this game against them. And so Joe worked their camp a year ago, and my son Brad even worked their camp 2 weeks this year. So we've had a great relationship with them. And Joe said one day, he said, "Coach, you want the good or bad news?" And I said, "Well, hey, give me the good news. You know, I'm up for good news." And he said, "Well, we're in Michigan State's Coca-Cola Classic." I said, "Super." I said, "What's the bad news?" He said, "We opened with Michigan State." So, you know, you can look at it two ways, but I tell you what, our recruiting, I think, was better because of it. You know, obviously, you know, that's huge, and it's something that is going to be difficult, and thank goodness they had a couple guys jump pro this year, lost 3 other seniors. They may not be as good, but, you know, when you're at that level, you know, I think it's going to be something where it kind of reminds me of that movie Hoosiers, where when Gene Hackman got to Hinkle Fieldhouse, he measured the rim and he measured the free throw line, and he said exactly like our Jim and Hickory. And, you know, that's exactly right. You know, sure, the surroundings are bigger, but the floor's no different, the rims are no different. They put 5 guys on the floor, and they may be a little more athletic and a little bigger, but I tell you, if you can't get excited for that game, then you shouldn't even be in basketball. I mean, you know, when I go up before the game to shake Coach Izzo's hand, you know, it's going to be a great thrill to know that we're about to play them. But also, you know, I'm not going to be intimidated, and I hope our players aren't either. I'm looking at it that it's going to be a great situation for us, and hopefully we can respond. I mean, you know, when I look at it, I mean, what, 2 years ago, Michigan got beat by 50 by Duke, and Michigan's a Big Ten school. So, you know, teams get beat, and teams get beat bad, and life goes on, but, you know, that's a great shining moment for IPFW to be in the spotlight, and you know, who knows, if we can play them tough and you can get to the last 10 minutes and it's a fairly close game, you know, the collars on their shirts may get a little tighter, their players may press a little more, because, you know, we're not supposed to win. In fact, you know, I think the biggest pressure game we have, Mike, is going to be Morehead State, because, you know, it's our first chance to make a great impression in the Fort Wayne community, and we don't want to blow that one. There's a lot of pressure on that game. Michigan State, shoot, we're not supposed to win. We're not supposed to be in the ball game, so we'll just go up and have fun and work hard, and that's going to be great. I'm not real excited about that whole week, and when I say that, what I mean is we had to stick Ball State in that week because of a schedule conflict with TV and playing them in January, because we go from Michigan State's tournament
play Michigan on December the 4th, and then 2 days later you go down to Muncie and play Ball State. That's why I say, to me, it's the most exciting, but also I feel the most difficult part of your schedule.
Right.
4 games in 6 days, 3 of which quality, relatively local opponents on a national scale.
Right, and you know, then I really want to thank Jason Klein from Indiana Tech, because we had them scheduled for Saturday, I believe January 8th, and we're pushing that on Sunday the 9th just to give us one more day of rest. And, you know, I really appreciate that, because the Ball State game wasn't supposed to be in there. And the one thing that is a downer on that end is, you know, Terry Collins misses one more game this year then, because it's in the first half of the year, and we normally had it scheduled in January. So that is going to be an exciting week. I mean, there's no doubt about it, Mike, but, you know, it's a lot of games for these guys, a lot of mental fatigue and a lot of preparation. But, hey, we're just going to do the best we can, and you know, we can't practice. You know, our practices have to change a little bit based on not wearing us out during the practice weeks. But you're right, it is exciting going from Michigan to Michigan State. Michigan State to Michigan to Ball State, and then we have a home game. So our black uniforms earlier are going to get washed a lot, and we're going to be wearing those a lot. But I am happy with our schedule. I mean, when you look at Oakland, I talked to Oakland, they had maybe 6 or 7 home games their very first year. And then next year, with the teams that owe us games, plus what we have on our schedule, we're going to have at least half of our games, if not more. So really in the second year, in our first year of full-fledged Division I, we've actually got as many, if not more, home games. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. You mentioned Indiana Tech, then you follow that up on December 17th with a game against Tri-State. And then you get to go out west, 2 little trips out west to finish off the calendar portion of 2001. Colorado State, Montana State, Oregon State from the Pac-10, and then you get to spend New Year's playing Long Beach State and San Diego State, who was coached by Steve Fisher, and all he did, his first time as a varsity collegiate coach in 6 games, won a national championship in Michigan. So you finished the year off on the road out west, but it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, pretty easy schedule, isn't it?
Then we get into 2002, and I know we're starting to run short of time. You're going to take on a number of teams from the Mid-Con. You're going to play Chicago State, Eastern Kentucky, Illinois, Chicago. Again, we're going to broadcast here. Oakland University is the other game at the Coliseum on January 28th. Middle Tennessee State, there's a question mark, I believe, so we'll bypass that. Lipscomb University from Nashville, Tennessee. Concordia College from Ann Arbor, which is fond and dear to both Joe and myself because we both went there. Loyola Chicago, IUPUI, Grace College, near and dear to you because you played and coached there. And we finish up with 3 games against Mid-Con teams, Chicago State, Youngstown State, and Missouri, Kansas City on the road. Thoughts on the caliber of opponent we're going to play? And briefly, because John tells me we're just about out of time, thoughts on conference affiliation, how soon and possibly where?
Well, some of those things I can't answer, Mike. You know, it's like the weather. You just can't worry about them. You just got to, step outside every day and into the elements, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. We think we got a great schedule. I mean, anytime you look at who we're playing and how difficult it is, some people may think we're, crazy. We're making a lot of money for our athletic department to help other non-revenue sports, and that's what it's about. As I mentioned, we want to get into a conference very quickly because that develops your rivalries. That really gives you a base of scheduling you don't have to work with. When you're an independent, you're playing every night of the week other than when you should be playing because you're playing teams that have conference affiliation and they're playing on their off dates. And also, I think demographically, you want to be in a conference that's close, and there's a couple conferences like the Mid-Con, the Horizon now, which actually Youngstown State is a new member of. So either conference, I think, would be great. I think the Horizon is ranked, in the top 10 or 11 in the country, and the Mid-Con is in the upper 20s. But a conference affiliation would be great for our athletic department and would really help out a lot. It gives you some more home games for teams that find struggles for picking up home games, especially being a new Division I entity. And I think that's all part of it. If we got in the Mid-Con, obviously Valparaiso and IUPUI would be natural rivalries. If we got in the Horizon, you got Butler for that. So that's the things that we're really looking at. But we think we put a good schedule together. There's some people that say, wow, I can't believe how, I only have to play 1 or 2 guarantee games and that's it, and the rest of them we play other teams. And, my thoughts are, Utah called me the other day. We get calls from a lot of the big schools that do want to play us, and obviously for several reasons. They're looking for wins, and they know if you count Division I and you're new, you're not going to be as good as you may be in 5 years. So, I really hope that, we can have a little bit of time to build this because I think we're doing it right. I think if you talk to the coaches around the Indiana and the country, they've seen us out at every place we've been able to go. They've seen us. They know we're working hard to bring in quality student athletes here at IPFW. That's very important to me. And when I came here the first year, I told him, I said, the wins are secondary right now because we've got to get these kids back on an academic, situation and progress, and we've done that. We've had 14 kids in my 2 years make the coaches or dean's list, which is a 3.0 or 3.5. And those are kids we're going to get to graduate and be integral parts of this society. And then as we get into the conference, we'll get more competitive, and that's really what we want to do. So we're not going to back down from anybody. It may be stupid to play some of these good teams, but these guys are excited. We're excited. We know we're going to get knocked down. We just got to pick ourselves up, probably get knocked down again, but the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible, and that's the way we look at it.
And on that note, we'll end this program, but we look forward to an exciting season, and we're looking forward to having you and your staff and your players with us on a regular basis starting in December. And we wish you the best of luck, again, starting this Sunday with the exhibition against Albion. But thanks for coming on today, and good luck.
Thank you, Mike.
Doug Knoll has been our guest this week, the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. That's it for this edition of the program. As always, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back next week. We hope to have Terry Stefankowitz with a final wrap-up show on men's and women's soccer, so we invite you to come back for that. But again, also one other final note, Sunday, Albion College and 3 p.m. tip-off, see men's basketball. That's it. Until next week, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week and go Dons. It's hard to believe, but the fall sports season is coming to an end real quickly here at IPFW. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back at the men's and women's soccer programs with assistant coach Mike Harper, and later in the show we'll also have a chance to speak to a couple of members of the men's soccer team as well. The item on the menu this week is soccer. Our show is Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, it's hard to believe, but the fall season for sports here at IPFW is fast coming to a close. And believe it or not, today's topic, men's and women's soccer, the seasons are indeed over, having completed play this past weekend. Our guest today is the assistant coach for both men's and women's soccer here at IPFW, Mike Harper. And Mike, first and foremost, thanks for coming in. And second of all, where is Terry Stefankowitz?
Well, Terry's enjoying a nice vacation out in San Francisco, although I did call him this morning and I forgot it was pretty early in California, so I woke him up at 6 this morning. So he wasn't too happy about that, but he'll be getting back next week.
The season is gone by in a hurry. I swear it just seems like a few weeks ago we were talking soccer showcase and how the season's progressing, and now all of a sudden it's over with. I know things were doubly difficult for you and Terry because the two of you have to handle both the men's program and the women's program, but from a personal standpoint, is it hard to believe that the season's over?
Actually, it went real quick. The season was only 2 months long, and Terry and I were so busy, it just seemed like we started yesterday and it just flew by because we were always doing something. I think I added up the other day of how many hours Terry and I have each just spent on the bus just driving to and from games, and it came out to about 160 hours. So that's
a week's worth of time, just about.
Yeah, that's just a lot of time traveling, so it flew by.
Well, we're going to begin our review with the women's program today. When Terry was on last a few weeks ago, we had gone through the first part of October. The women had just come off a 1-0 victory at Valparaiso. The men had come off a tough 4-1 defeat at the hands of Taylor University Upland. So we're going to start with the women. We had 5 matches that remained on the schedule, and we'll try to review those briefly, starting with a match against Western Illinois here at the Hefner Fields. A tough match back on October the 19th that you lost 1-0. Brief thoughts on that match.
That was actually one of our better games. Western Illinois is a growing program as well. I thought it was a real good match. They squeaked one in. I don't remember what half it was, but we turned our horses up top. We put Shasina Hersey up top, and she had, I want to say, 3 or 4 breakaways where she took it down and had an excellent shot on goal. Keeper came up with an incredible save again and again and again, and we could just not tie it. I think with 7 seconds left, we even had one bounce around the box. We put in, but the time had already expired. So that was a real good game for us. The girls were real happy, but again, it was a loss.
That was followed up 3 days later, the final home game of the season, on Monday night at the Hefner Fields against the University of Detroit Mercy. And again, we came up on the short side of a 4-0 score. I think you were here for that one.
Yes.
Talk about that match.
Detroit, they had a very good team. They were real quick. They exploited us with their speed. And towards the end of the season, the weather was just horrendous. We played a lot of games in the rain, and our field was just underwater. And they got a couple goals that the ball just sat in the water in front of the goal for them. They tucked in, and they scored a couple quick ones, and that was it. We played pretty well against them, but they did get 4 in on us.
Then about 6 days later, the team traveled to Evanston, Illinois, took on Northwestern from the Big Ten. Final score, Northwestern 6, IPFW nothing. And I'm trying to remember because you said there was one of the games that you weren't available.
Yeah, I was there for that one.
You were there for that one.
Yes, Northwestern was a team that I went ahead and scheduled before the year. They didn't have a real solid record, and I believe they only had a couple wins. But I guess they're playing very, very tough competition, the Big Ten and all these top schools in Division I. So I think they were real eager to get out and get ahead on somebody, and we happened to be the team to go up there and have that happen to. They were a really good team. I was really impressed with them, and we really didn't have much of a chance. We played hard. We had a couple good opportunities, but they got the better of us.
That was followed up by a couple of matches last week. One, you were not with the team. They went up to Mount Pleasant, Michigan, took on the Chippewas of Central Michigan, and lost 4-0. And then last Saturday, you had the season finale down in Muncie against the Ball State Cardinals, and it's always tough to end a season, period, but to lose it 1-0 in overtime had to be a double harsh pill to swallow.
Believe it or not, I was real happy with the results. Going into that game, looking at Ball State's record and who they played, they were 12-5. They played some good schools and beat some schools that just killed us. So we thought we were in for a shellacking. But our girls went down there and played their butts off. We even had a chance to win it in overtime. We had a couple shots, and they squeaked one in off. I think it was off a direct. It just kind of bounced around. Somebody poked it in double overtime. So I think as coaches and the players, I think we were really excited about the way they played, and their heads were up, which is really good. So final note.
The season is now over for the women, and if one looks at the one-loss record, which personally I feel is a horrible thing to do when you look at the entire picture, because so many times coaches are judged and teams are judged by how many games they win as opposed to how they improved or didn't improve during the course of the season in all facets of the game. You look at the record, 3 wins, 15 losses. But you and I both know, and Terry knows, and your women know, this was a better team than a team that finished up 3-15.
Yeah, their record doesn't show of their efforts. They fought hard day in, day out. Most teams would just quit. Most players would quit. It's a very mentally frustrating thing to go in, day out, and have all these losses. They stuck together, they fought hard, and we played some real good schools and had real good outcomes. I mean, they can't be upset about that. Some of these girls played, they were Division II, and they were thrown into the fire, and we didn't expect them to do great things, but some of them really turned our heads, and we're really, really impressed with some of the players. So.
We don't mean to slight anybody, but we're going to mention a few names, and I'd like your thoughts and comments now that the season is over. Leading scorer on the team, Kristen McDonald, again one of the many members of the soccer program from New England, Massachusetts area. 6 goals, 3 assists.
Yeah, the year before, she was a very exceptional player, had a lot of goals for us, and a lot of schools would finally recognize who our scorers were and double team. So this year she took a beating. They marked her every game. They knew who she was. The Division I teams, they scout and they know who our players are. She did have some goals. She played really good. She had some injuries at the beginning of the year that kind of held her back, but she really came on, and she's going to be one of the players to look out for here in the future.
Another member of the Massachusetts connection, Chasina Hersey, 6 goals, 2 assists, and I thought it's interesting. I know Terry and I talked in a prior show. She made position change, probably at least a couple of times during the course of the year. Talk about her performance and the fact that being versatile and being able to play more than one position.
She was one of the players that we could put anywhere. It was just a question of where we wanted to put her in that game. She swept for us, she played in the middle for us, she played up top for us. And in every position she did great. And all the teams that we played, if I were to take the best player that I've seen, I'd say Chasina was top 5. She was that good. And she's got 2 more years of eligibility left. She's going to be a great player to be watching here in the next 2 years. She's going to do great things.
Next person I want to mention is Andrea Capelli, and she's a 5'4" junior who is from here in Fort Wayne, played at Snyder High School. And I remember back in Soccer Showcase, the word that came to my mind in a hurry was spunky. And talk about her play. She ended up with 3 goals on the year.
Yes, Andrea Capelli was a great player for us. Excellent speed. That girl could run all day long. Very strong left-footed player. We put her out on the left outside mid, and I believe she scored all the 3 goals the same way. She took it down, and instead of crossing it, she'd take a shot on goal, and it would kind of screw the keepers up. I always razzed her about it, but a beautiful goal. She won the Valparaiso game for us, which was a huge win for us. And she has 1 year of eligibility left too, so we hope to have her back next year, and she's going to do good things too.
A couple other players to mention, a pair of Megans, and I know I'm going to screw up the first one. Is it Grzanka?
Yes.
I actually did that right. And Megan Dela from here in Fort Wayne. Each of them scored a pair of goals. Talk about their play.
Megan Dela is a local girl from Snyder who is also going to be running track for IPFW, 2-sport athlete. Great girl, great work ethic, very, very quick on the field. And she played really well for us all year long, and we hope to have her again for 3 more years. So Megan Grzanka, this girl could club a ball from anywhere. We even put her back on defense, take goal kicks. She got a couple goals, real nice goals through the year, and she's going to do nice things for us as well.
Last but not least, we're almost out of time in this segment. I want to briefly touch upon the two gals who played between the pipes, a pair of freshman goalkeepers, Lindsay Moswinski and Sarah, I don't know, I'm going to screw it up. Is it Labe?
Yep.
Labe. A pair of freshmen.
Both freshmen we threw straight into the fire. Division I soccer, 2 freshmen, and they both played all year long. For going against this competition, I thought they did tremendous. They really came on towards the end of the year. Lindsay came on. She had a great game against Ball State. Let one squeak in at the end, but there's nothing she could have done about it. She came up with some great saves. She basically won the Valparaiso game for us. She had a breakaway stop at the end. So she really came on towards the end of the year. We were really proud of her. Sarah was a player that we could use on the field as well as in the goal. She was a decent field player for us. She even got minutes up top, and she also played in the goal, so that helped out because we were low on numbers.
Well, those are some of the members of the team that we wanted to highlight, and for those that we didn't mention, we apologize. There's no slight intended, but we wanted to talk about these gals. Excuse me, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the men's team to see how they fared in their final few matches, but that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
For over 3 decades, Dr. James Owen has been credited for helping IPFW become a top-rated school through not only teaching, but also his involvement in the Fort Wayne community.
The kind of people that the city were hiring at the time were people with advanced computer skills. I thought, my Lord, unless my students get up to speed in this particular area, skill and talent, knowledge, that they weren't going to be competitive in the job market.
Dr. Owen developed courses that would train his students to become leaders in the community.
At one time, of the 6 major department heads in the city of Fort Wayne, 3 of them were former students of mine that I'd recommended for the job.
He makes a point to stay in touch with former students, and that makes a difference in their lives.
Whenever I think about undergraduate days, I always think about old Professor so-and-so. She said, I have one like that too. And she said that's Dr. Owen.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Let me show you something amazing. This is Amanda. She was born with a serious skin condition. You're about to see it disappear. Some might call this magic, but the real magic's happened on the inside. The child's self-esteem has been restored. Don't let anything get in the way of being a kid. This is David Copperfield for the American Academy of Dermatology.
When others can't understand you.
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
Ding-a-dong, hee-haw?
And you can't understand others.
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
Then you have a clue what it's like to live with a communication disorder.
The Blackstone building.
For more on communication disorders and where to find help, call the American Speech Language Hearing Association.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our item on the menu today is soccer, both men's and women's soccer here at the university. Our guest is the assistant coach for both men's and women's soccer, Mike Harper. And Mike, we look back at the finish of the women's season. Now we're going to turn our attention to the men's season. And when Terry was on last, I mentioned briefly in the last segment, we just had, in all honesty, a horrible match. He wasn't happy with the match against Taylor University that we lost 4-1. We're going to show some highlights of the match played just prior to that, the night before, against Wright State University. And that was a match that was played down in Dayton. And I know Terry and I briefly talked about the fact that you got a match, and there was a situation this year with a number of matches where there was some travel involved, and back-to-back matches on the road with travel. John, if you're ready, anytime we can start the highlights. And go ahead. We are in the blue, and Wright State is in the white. And Mike, I'll let you take it from here. But first and foremost, Talk about how difficult it is for a team to have to travel and play and then come back the next day and play again.
It's very difficult, especially the timing of these games. We played at Wright State. I think it was a 7:30 start, and we had to turn around and play Saturday fairly early. I think it was 11 or 12. So our guys were real tired, and it showed. I know Ian Luya received a red card for something that we've never seen him do before. He just doesn't do it, but he was completely fatigued. He lost a ball. I've seen him do this move 100 times, and he was just too tired to pull it off. Ended up chasing the guy down and whacking him a good one. But
we'll talk to him about that later. He's going to be one of our guests, so we'll get some idea of what he thought about it.
I'm sure he's going to say he didn't get him, but you know, the intent was there. So, but that just shows that our players were really fatigued, and several of the other ones were as well. We had a couple guys sick as well. It's tough. The travel takes a toll.
As we look at these parts of the match, talk about the style of attack. Terry had mentioned in an earlier show that you changed your style of attack during the course of the season.
Yeah, we changed a lot of things throughout the year. A lot of these schools that we play against usually came at us. They had 70 to 80% of the play in our end, so a lot of times it was just a quick counter. We tried to beat them. Seth Fischelson gave us some speed up top, and he was able to break through several times. And we also moved Ian around from outside mid to inside, back to outside, so that was always changing as well. But Seth Fischelson up top gave us a good spark, and we could get teams with a little bit of speed up there. And we could counter on teams that they didn't expect it. They'd fall asleep back there, and we'd just go at them once in a while. And you know, we took our beatings down on our defensive end, but with our great defenders and keeper, we were able to hold teams off to give us a chance.
We got a scoring chance there.
Yeah, I believe this ball squirts through right here, and it's played back. Played back to Richie Mandelbaum here, and he plays a long ball into Derek Laliberti, who gets a quick touch right over the keeper. It's an excellent goal. And a lot of times we score like this. We take teams by surprise. They wouldn't expect us coming because they were dominating most of the game.
What we've got coming up here is a play that's going to end up resulting in a second goal of the night. Talk about the fact that on the offensive side, it's a lot of people that may not be familiar with soccer, how important the spacing aspect is, not to be clumped together so much.
It's very important, especially up top. We tell our guys to stay close to each other to help each other out, but once we win the ball, we got to open the field up. And once you open the field up, it makes the other team vulnerable. And that starts all the way with the back. We teach our backs to spread the ball and use what we call a horseshoe, be able to swing it from one side to the other. And that gets the offense tired, it gets them chasing around, but it also opens them up. It opens up lanes where we can attack in. So it starts with the back and then it ends up top. We just try to create space. The more space, the better off you're going to be offensively.
What dictates when you bring your back people up forward? Obviously, maybe the score of the game, but are there certain situations that you prefer? You want to, instead of having maybe 4 guys or 5 guys up front, maybe bring 7 or 8?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where we like to send our backs into attack. Sean Carrier, who swept the beginning part of the year, was a prime example. When he won the ball, he was so quick he could take 1 or 2 guys right up the middle and beat them, and that would create numbers up for us offensively.
Good defensive play there.
Yes. And I believe this is the goal right here. Seth has the ball, plays it to Marco Augustin and right back to him, and tucks it right under the keeper's wing there.
At that point, that gave IPFW a 2-1 lead in the match against Wright State. With good, there's always sometimes bad news, and what you're going to see now is a situation where Wright State has already tied the match, and it is 2-2. It's getting towards the latter stages of the match, and unfortunately, Wright State's going to come up and score a goal with less than 5 minutes to go that ultimately decides the contest. When you have these tight, tough matches and at night and so forth, how important is the value of a good bench to have some able-bodied substitutes to be able to come in?
Well, that helps tremendously, and I think we do have a great bench. We got guys coming off the bench that had started at one time. There's a goal right there.
Yeah, he split the defense right in half. Yep. Well, that was the winning goal in that match, and the final score was Wright State 3, IPFW 2. And what you're going to see now, we're going to jump ahead a couple of matches. The final match of the year, which was played last Friday night at Loyola of Chicago. And again, IPFW in the traveling blue and Loyola in the home white. And this is a match where I believe we jumped out on top.
Yeah, we got the first goal. Derek Lalaberty scored again. We took the lead on him, and we were very lucky to do so because they were shelling us the first part of the game and actually saved a PK.
There it is.
There's a goal by Derek, a beautiful left-footed shot. And yes, and that put us up 1-0.
And if my memory is correct, that was somewhere on the 19th minute of the match. So early on, you had the lead.
Yeah.
But Loyola comes back, and talk about, if you can, Mike, we're going to see some play ultimately ending up in a Loyola goal, but we're going to see some good play on both sides. When we think of soccer and we hear scores like 1-0 or 2-1, some people may misperceive that as a boring game, but in a lot of cases a 1-0 or a 2-1 game is an exciting game.
Yeah, some of our games this year, actually all of them, the most exciting games were a 1-1, 1-0, a real close game, 2-1. The California Irvine game was probably the most exciting. We ended up tying 1-1. I was just looking at our schedule and our stats. There are 7 games that were a 1-goal differential. And there's 7 potential wins for us, and that's the way we got to look at it. You give us those 7, the 2 we won, we're at 9 already. So I think that's a bright spot in our program, and the guys should see that. I mean, a lot of these games are just unfortunate. Second overtime, 4 or 5 minutes left. Cleveland State, Loyola Chicago, same thing. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, we should say this is the season finale game in between what you just saw with Wright State and with this match. We did lose to Taylor Upland 4-1. We did lose to University of Detroit Mercy, the final home game at Hefner Fields 4-1. We lost to Butler 7-0, and what Terry said was a real education. And Cleveland State, you had just come off a 1-0 double overtime loss, and this match here that we're seeing some highlights from also ultimately went to a second overtime, and unfortunately we came out on the short end. But one of the things that I do want to bring out, and one of the clips that I put together, was the fact that there were chances on both teams, and there was good play, both sides of the ball on both teams. There's a good save by Peter.
Yeah, this is one of Peter's best games he played all year. He kept us in the game. This game could have been 15-0, but he was all over the place. He saved a penalty kick.
Yeah, we're going to see a highlight of that penalty kick as well.
He had a flurry. He had that save right there. He had a bunch where he just tipped over, tipped just wide.
I'm not exactly sure where in the sequence. There's also going to be a flurry. We're going to see, as you mentioned, 4 or 5 shots in a row, and he kept them all out of the net. And
that's their goal they scored.
Yeah, that was a tying goal.
Yep.
And I believe that was around the 37, 38-minute mark, and then it stayed 1-1 for a long time.
Yep, the rest of the game. You
got 90 minutes in a regular match, and this one went 2 overtimes. First one, I believe, 15 minutes, and then the second one was in the 9-10-minute mark before the goal was finally scored. But again, here's Loyola putting on some pressure, and we're able to keep them at bay. I think coming up here is going to be a chance where there's actually going to be a takedown for that penalty shot. Number 25, I'm not sure who was it for us that took him down, but in some respects a good tackle.
Yeah, it was Scott Bailey. It was a questionable call. But as true soccer players say, the ball never lies, and he missed a PK, so.
And here we go with that PK. And what does a goalie think in that situation? Obviously, he's not supposed to move until the ball is actually touched. But is it just a crapshoot guess which way he's going to go?
I would have to say it is. I know Peter after the game said he read him and he said he knew exactly where he was going, but every keeper says that after a great save like that. I mean, that's just the way they are. But usually you just have to guess. It's such a quick shot. It's only 12 yards out. It's really tough to save, and he did save it, which was great. It kept us in the game.
Now we're coming up to what's going to be some more pressure put on by the Ramblers, and you're going to see a flurry of activity here in a moment where, again, 4 or 5 shots, golden opportunities for Loyola to score, and we kept the ball out of the net.
This is something we got real good at towards the end of the year. We had a lot of practice back there with teams coming at us. So
here's the first one.
Yep,
Boom.
first shot.
Good save.
Peter saves it, and we couldn't quite clear it. It came right back.
2,
saved it again.
3. Here comes a 4th shot, I think. And it was just a big flurry. And now we're coming down. Unfortunately, we're in the second overtime at this point, and there's approximately about a minute and a half left in this match and in the season. And again, second overtime fatigue is already set in.
Yeah, our guys are tired, and it's a shame that our seniors had to go out like this. But I think they also have to, hold their heads high because they played a great game. And they fought through a lot too.
We still had a couple of chances here. You'll see. I believe there was an offside or something like that, and then they get possession, and one thing will lead to the other. And unfortunately, I believe the gentleman's name was Chris Gradilla. He ended up scoring both goals for Loyola, including the game winner, which is about to come up, I believe. Fight for the ball. Easier for a team to play at night as opposed to during the daytime?
Some players like it. It's a little less humid, and they get up for it a little bit more.
Just about at the end, unfortunately. I think this is the last big possession for Loyola. And getting closer and closer, and here we go. Can't read the numbers on the back of those white jerseys, but they did have some good passing, give and go. And one more give. There's the kick, and there's the goal.
That's a beautiful goal by him.
And that's, unfortunately, that's the way the season ended for the men. 2-1, double overtime, 115th minute of a 90-minute regularly scheduled match. Season's over. 2-13-1, and like you just said a few moments ago, very easily could have been maybe a 9-win or 10-win season instead. But quick thought on the season just completed before we go to break.
Quick thought. I give our guys credit for sticking out. Like I said earlier, with the girls, we threw them in the fire Division I. Some players were ready, some weren't. Some stepped up to the plate, and some it took half the season, but they got there. They all rose to the occasion. And to play against some of these schools, first time Division I, is just incredible, some of the results we got. So I'm not disappointed with their efforts or the record. We would like a couple more wins, but we were in a lot of those games. There's only a few games where we were out of it. So overall, we're very excited about it and looking forward to the future.
Well, before we talk about that future for both men's and women's soccer, we're going to take a break, and we're going to bring on a couple of members of the men's soccer team. Junior Ian Lulia and freshman Seth Fishelson. And that interview will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Matthew Shepard died after he was beaten and tied to a fence. 2 men have been charged. One pleaded guilty.
My biggest regret after walking into the hospital and seeing him was I didn't tell him enough as a father that I loved him. The thing that I've learned most is that your son is your son and your daughter is your daughter, regardless of whether they're straight or gay.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, it kills over 1,500 people every year and injures 71,000 more. Inadequate sleep has been linked to health and safety risks, even premature death. But today, new treatments are helping millions get the sleep they need. So talk to your doctor or take our free risk assessment on the web at sleepfoundation.org. Sleep deprivation. It's real, it's dangerous, and it's more treatable than ever.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now for the student athlete interview segment of the program. And we are pleased to have with us today two members of the men's soccer team here at IPFW. To my immediate right, back for a return visit, although it's been 2 years, Ian Lulia. And boy, I think I pronounced it a whole lot better than I did 2 years ago, Ian. Ian is a junior from Greater Manchester, England. And to Ian's right is Seth Fishelson. Boy, and I knew I'd screw that up one way or the other. Seth is a freshman, part of the New England connection here at IPFW. Seth hails from Beverly, Massachusetts. Gentlemen, Seth, welcome to the program, and Ian, welcome back. For the benefit of our viewers who may not have watched us a couple of years ago, Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Come from, like you say, Greater Manchester, England. Junior this year. Came here as a freshman. Obviously we're in Division 2, and obviously I've seen a little bit of stuff change since I've been here, but we're looking forward, so it's going to be good, definitely.
Seth?
I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, along with some of the other players from the women's and men's team. This is my first year. College level is a little different, but I adapted to it at a good pace and hope to look forward to the next years to come.
We mentioned, Seth, you're part of the New England connection, and I think of Kristen McDonald from the women's team, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but there's a couple of others. What led you to come from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the state of Indiana to play soccer?
I don't know. Our coach had a connection with Terry, and just looking through colleges, they just pointed it out, and just happened to fall into place.
What's it like as far as well, it's collegiate soccer in the Midwest compared to high school soccer in the Northeast?
It's pretty much the same, just the level of play is a little faster, and it's more one touch than, and you know, in high school you really just kick and run, but kind of it's a little more physical in college, and it's just a faster game.
Ian, we talked a couple years ago, and once I got over the language barrier and the mispronunciation of the name. This, as you said, when you came here a couple years ago, we were a Division II school playing in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. This year, no conference affiliation, and you played against Division I opponents. What's the differential that you've seen between the caliber of play in Division II and the caliber of play in Division I?
I think a lot of things in Division 1, it's a lot faster and obviously a lot more competitive. You know, like you play different schools like Notre Dame, schools like that, obviously they've got a lot of money and they can bring in obviously better quality players and that sort of thing, compared to Division 2 where, you know, it's a little less, the standards a little slower, and, you know, there's weak positions on the field in Division 2, you can pick them out. In Division 1 everyone's a solid player, you know, and it's a lot harder to find a weak link in a team, something like that. So it's definitely a lot quicker, more physical, more competitive basically overall.
We noted off air before we started this segment, you started the year off at one position, but then were moved to another position early on. Talk about the two different positions and which one you like better.
Well, I started off playing, like even my freshman year, I started off playing outside midfield. It's a lot more running probably than anything else. It's back and forward all the time, offense, defense, but it's a lot more hard work, you know, that sort of thing. But this season we lost like Garrett halfway through the season as well because he broke his ankle or whatever, so I had to play in central midfield. It just gives you more opportunity to be more creative and have more influence on the game than being outside where, you know, you tend to be more on the fringes of things, but in the middle you can control what goes on and that sort of thing. So it's definitely, I think it's a more important role, so it's good.
Seth, you played forward this year. Is that the position you've always played?
Mostly. I played a little bit of the center mid in high school, but you have to be kind of big in college, so I don't think I would have done as well if I played the midfield. So up front is a good position for me.
When we look at some of the numbers for the season just completed, you two gentlemen were the leading scorers on the team this year. Ian had 6 goals and 2 assists, and Seth had 4 goals and 1 assist. Is there a goal or a play or a game that stands out in your mind this year, be it good, bad, or indifferent? Ian?
I don't know really. I think probably one of the best games we played at Western Michigan, and we won 4-2 in that game. But you know, DePaul as well. That was obviously the first win and that sort of thing. So you know, that was important. But I don't think there's anything that really stands out. It's obviously been, you know, the results show that it's been a difficult season, and it's just got to be built upon really. So we'll see how it goes.
Seth, anything stand out in your mind?
I think that game did too. The 4-2 win. It was our second win. The DePaul game was kind of getting over the hump of losing, but we definitely have stuff to work on.
Ian, 2 years ago when you were here, team won 18 games, won a conference championship, made the Elite Eight in Division II, and nearly pulled that game out. As you said, this year has been a wee bit more difficult. You finished this year 2-13-1, but in reality, that's not a reflection on how well this team played on occasion. Looking back, can you compare and contrast those 2 seasons?
I think it's difficult too, because the schedule they've had this season, we haven't really had teams like Bellarmine and Kentucky Wesleyan that are pretty much weak schools in terms of soccer playing ability. Like in the GLVC, there is weak teams. You know, everyone knows that in every conference there's weak teams, but most of the teams that we've played this year are obviously on a much higher level than all of those teams are, and that sort of thing. So obviously you can't deny the achievements that we had that season, and obviously, you know, we had All-American goalkeeper, Matt Hine All-American too, that sort of thing. So it's just been totally different seasons really. I think it's difficult to compare them and, you know, a Division II level against a Division I level. So I don't know, it's just difficult to compare the two. Obviously 18 wins speaks for itself, but it doesn't really tell the whole story of, you know, this season, that sort of thing. So
I would be remiss and probably would get shot by some people if I didn't bring up the subject. A number of your teammates at one point a year ago, there was thought that maybe some of the seniors may redshirt for this first year against primarily Division I opponents.
Right.
And then the decision was made, no, let's go out and let's try to get the first winning season for the university at D1 level. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize. Talk about the mood of the team during the course of the season.
I think obviously it's been difficult because obviously, like we say, the results or whatever, that sort of thing, but I think it's basically been a roller coaster ride. There's no denying it. You know, obviously it's difficult for us as well because the coaches have to balance between both teams. You know, being on the road with the girls one day and then on the road with the guys. So it's just difficult to gain continuity through that sort of thing. But I think the mood of the players has been upbeat, definitely. Even at the end of the season, you know, we're all looking forward to what's going to happen next season, and you know, we know what we have to build upon now. You know, we've had our season where we've seen how it is and what has to be done. So now it's basically how we're going to build upon it.
Seth, well, actually both of you at this point, this season is now history, but you've got more eligibility left. Seth, you have 3 years. Ian, you have 1 more year. What do you do now that technically you're in off season? What do you do to prepare for next year?
I think during the off season, it's just obviously there's going to be new players brought in and that sort of thing, but we have to get a close group together of players that are going to be here next year and that are going to, you know, are going to play a significant role. So it's all about getting those people together and, you know, forging some sort of partnership with everyone and getting everyone ready to go towards the same goal. I think that's the most important. And during the summer, playing in summer leagues and that sort of thing, and not letting it slip. You've got to be committed if you want to be successful. You can't go at it half-assed, so to speak.
Are you going to stay here in the States between time the end of the school year and next season starts for practice, or are you going to go back home to England?
No, I'm going to actually play in Michigan for Kalamazoo Kingdom. It's in the league called the PDL, so it's like kids from IU and St. Louis, schools like that play there in the summer, so it's really competitive and it's good exposure, so I'm going to do that probably.
Seth, being from Massachusetts, what are you going to do in between now and the start of practice next year?
I'm just going to train hard, work on the mistakes that I need to perfect, and then I'm going to also be playing the PDL in under a new team that's coming out where I live. So I'm going to play that, get some exposure, and see what happens.
Here in Indiana, or are you going to go back home to Massachusetts?
I'm going to go back home.
Ian, I was told before we started the segment, and I have to bring it up, that nice, mild-mannered, but fiercely competitive Ian Lulia got a red card during the course of the year. Red card's a no-no. Talk about what happened.
No, we had a game on the Friday night against Wright State, and it went to overtime, and then we played the next day against Taylor in the morning, and 9 times out of 10, I would have pulled the move off that I was trying to pull off, and I didn't. And the guy starts sprinting away, and there's like a minute left in the half, so I'm chasing him 50 yards, and I'd already played the night before. I'm exhausted. I couldn't catch him. Desperation, I just lunged at him. Didn't really catch him, but the referee sprints over. I knew as soon as he ran over, because he ran over so fast, hand in his pocket, red card. And that was about it, really. So I don't know if it warranted a red card, but...
What did coaches say?
Coach didn't think it was a red card either, he'll tell you. He knows I can't tackle anyway, so...
We're almost out of time in this segment, but I do want to go back to the academic side for a second. Seth, what is your field of study here at the university?
Right now I'm undecided, but I'm looking towards maybe psychology or sports medicine.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm secondary education and social studies, so I'm more likely going to be a teacher at the end of it all.
Even though you got a year to go, post-graduation thoughts or plans? Might you want to continue to play, or do you want to think about maybe getting into coaching?
More than likely, going to try and play. And then, obviously, there's a lot of opportunities for European coaches in America. You know, a lot of college teams definitely have European coaches and that sort of thing. So if the playing option doesn't work out, I think coaching is definitely a realistic option. So we'll see.
Well, as I say, we're just about out of time in this segment. I want to thank both of you for coming in today, and for Ian, it's welcome back. And we hope to have you both back again next year. And we wish you success in the future, both in the classroom and on the soccer field. But thanks once again for coming today to appear in the program.
Thank you.
Ian Lulia, and I think I pronounced that one correctly this time, a junior from England, and Seth Fischelson, I got it right that time, I think, freshman out of Massachusetts, have been our guests. We'll take a break, and when we come back, assistant coach Mike Harper will return, and we'll put the crystal ball on and look ahead to see what is in the future for both men's and women's soccer here at IPFW. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
It's the most magnificent sight in the universe. This planet full of life and wonder. This planet we call home. As an Earth Team volunteer, you can help the Natural Resources Conservation Service care for it, right in your own community. Call 1-888-LAND-CARE to find out how, because there's just no place like home.
I'm Richard Dean Anderson. On Stargate SG-1, we discovered that the Stargate device could be used to explore an endless variety of adventures. Your device for endless adventure is a good education. No matter what your goals might be, you'll go a lot farther if you don't drop out. So keep your options open. Stay in school.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Returning to us to the set now is assistant coach Mike Harper. And Mike, I always ask the coach following a student-athlete interview if you can take a moment and talk about the two gentlemen that we just had on, the Englishman, Ian Lulia, and the freshman from Massachusetts. Boy, I can't talk today at all, Seth Fischelson. Thoughts on those two players?
I could sit here for hours and talk about these two guys. They're very important to our program. Starting with Seth, he was a freshman who came out from Massachusetts, who at the beginning of the year didn't quite show, but really came on towards the end of the year. He ended up being one of our go-to guys, and that's very important, and that's great for him. He really started to shine at the end of the year, and a lot of his goals just came by working hard. He worked hard, and good things come to people who work hard. So. he got some real important goals. I know you asked him what his favorite game was, and I'd have to say Western Illinois, because he got a goal. I don't know how he scored it. He was on the in line, and somehow he squiggled one in. And then Ian went ahead and hit the tying goal. That's another game we lost in the final minute, but you know, those two guys kept us in that game, brought us back, and really made it a competitive game. Ian's been with us for a couple years now. He's a real joker, obviously, but he's doing wonderful things for us. He had several goals this year, combined with his 10 the year before when we had that real good year. We're looking for great things for him his senior year. We're looking for him to take over leadership on the team and really make things happen. He's one of the guys that's going to stick with us and really make this thing happen.
Well, let's look ahead now, and we'll start with the women. And 3-15, as we said earlier, doesn't sound like a good record, but again, this team, a team I feel, and it's probably a paid political announcement, should not always be judged by wins and losses. They should be judged by their effort and the determination and you know, how they practice, how they play, do they improve, the relationship that they have with each other. We've had other coaches on in previous shows talk about the importance of a good, solid relationship between players and players and players and coaches. When we look at the women's team for 2002 season, I look at the roster here, there are no seniors. So hopefully everybody will be back, and I know you can't mention names, but I know that you and Terry are out hitting the streets looking for more talent.
Yeah, definitely looking for more players. You know, most of the people should be back from last year, from this year. We'll have then 2 seniors next year, Andrea Capelli and Molly Coffey. Those will be our 2 seniors. But yeah, we're bringing in more talent. We need to know where we need to be. I think this year was a good learning experience for Terry and I. We really weren't familiar with Division I women's soccer. We know the kind of caliber players we need. We have some here. We need to get some more, and we make this thing work.
I know one of your jobs as the assistant coach is scheduling. And one thing, we talk about the learning that both you and Terry underwent this year, as well as the players. One issue that he commented on was scheduling. And in the future and with next year, how does the schedule look right now, even on a tentative basis? And one of the areas I wanted to talk about was, Terry mentioned hopefully next year there won't be many back-to-back matches, to have at least a 24-hour period between there.
Yeah, that's one thing we learned the hard way, obviously, with the Cleveland State and the Taylor of Upland game. And I did all the scheduling, and basically I had to take what I was given. Being a first-time Division I, no one wants to come play you, and you got to take what's handed to you. This year I had some flexibility. The schedule looks real good. I don't think there's any back-to-back games, more home games for both teams. And I think we got it set in stone almost, a Coastal Carolina trip, and we're going to take both teams down there. So it looks real good. It's going to be a lot more efficient this year with our traveling and everything. So.
Let's look at the men's team. There were some seniors, a number of seniors that you're going to lose, and I'll throw a couple of names out, or maybe I'll just let you throw. Talk about the departing seniors, what they've meant to the program and to the university, and then let's talk about people that are coming back.
I can't say enough about the seniors that we've had. They've been through turmoil here at IPFW. They were on the best team that IPFW's ever had in Division II. Then they had to sit out, or not sit out, but they had to go through the year where we had a transition period, and that was really tough on them, really tough. But they all stuck with it, and you got to give them credit. And those guys could have just quit and walked away, but they wanted to build and put the building blocks down for the freshmen and the younger players coming in. So they weren't only playing for themselves, but they were playing for the younger generation and trying to make the transition to Division I a little bit smoother by providing their expertise and their experience. And I think they did that. They were all well-mannered guys. Nick Pendleton, prime example, stuck through the hard times, and hopefully some of the young guys learned from that. Sean Carey was a junior college transferred for his last 2 years, happened to be our transition period, so it was a rough time on him. But he stuck through and he played hard every game. Derek Laliberti, another player just like him. So we've the guys, the seniors, I can't say enough about. We're really proud of them, and they're going to do good things in life.
Let's talk about people that are on a team that are coming back, such as Ian, such as Seth, and Peter and a few others.
We got a great core returning, and just like with the women, we got great players. But we're also going to go out because we want better players. We want to increase, our pool. We got hopefully some good recruits lined up, but I think the guys that we have are going to be the core of our team, and they're going to have to take on that responsibility. And I think players like Ian will.
If we could look back one more time, Mike, looking back at the season, and it seemed like it started a long way ago, but yet a short time back. What are some of the biggest things that you and Terry learned, both the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Speaking for myself, I think the biggest thing I learned is the level of competition. Playing, especially with the women's side, there's a wider variety of really good teams and weaker teams, and I know now where we fit in. And same with the men's, but every game is competitive with the men. Every game, every team is really fast, really strong, and that includes the weaker teams. We played, I believe it was Detroit, and they had a losing record. We thought we'd get on them. They came out and they were fast and quick, and so every team in Division I is, a strong team, and that I wasn't aware of, and I think I learned that this year, and I think Terry did as well.
Now that we're a Division I program, true blue, so to speak, there are some things now that the season is over, some things that you can do with the team, some things that you can't do with the team. Can you talk briefly about some of the do's and don'ts?
Some we're going to do this year. We're going to give the kids off until the semester's over because they need time. They've missed a lot of class. They need to catch up on the grades. We got great student athletes, but traveling takes a toll on them. So we want to get them because grades are far most important. When they come back from break, we're going to hit it hard. We're going to train every day. We're going to make them hit the weights. Some of them need to hit the weights pretty hard. We're going to condition them. We're allowed 5 spring dates where we can play. And we're going to schedule games, like exhibition games. Maybe play a couple indoor tournaments as well. Something we did last year that worked out real well for us.
When we look ahead to 2002, the beginning of that season is something that, though it's only in its infancy, is special here at IPFW, and that's Soccer Showcase. Soccer Showcase 1, we had all men's teams. This past year, Soccer Showcase 2, we had 8 men's teams. We had 4 women's teams. I know it's still in the planning stages, but can you talk a little bit about Soccer Showcase number 3 for the men, number 2 for the women?
Yes, it's going to be probably the biggest one of all because we are incorporating both men's and women's. We're going to bring in 4 teams for the men, 4 teams for the women, and then IPFW most likely will play an exhibition game against a Bowling Green or somebody. But the teams that we have coming in are top-of-the-line programs, both men's and women's.
Well, gosh, if I heard you correctly, just going to be 4 men's teams?
4 men's teams. That's the way it's set up right now. 4 men's teams, 4 women's teams, and then we'll play an exhibition game with somebody else.
So I know there's a lot of teams. The teams that were here last year all wanted to come back.
Oh yeah, we had to turn away some teams, which is unfortunate. There's just not enough time in the day to be all these games to be played.
We're almost out of time, but if there is one major ingredient that you're looking for next year, what would that be?
One major ingredient. We're looking for the people that we have in the program right now to step up and take leadership, and I think everything else will fall in place.
One other question I think you can answer, hopefully you can answer. How can both the outside of the university, the general public, and the student body, how can they get more involved with the program, and what can they do to help ensure a successful soccer program?
Any help that we get would be great. I think support is the most important. We go to other schools and they're out there screaming and yelling. If we could get support, that would be great. I mean, come out and watch our games. Come out to the showcase. It's going to be a great event.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure Terry does too. Congratulations again. Wins and losses, they don't look good. You see it where it is on IPFW this year, but I think the season was a success, both for men and women. Thanks for coming on, and good luck in the future. And we'll see you in December on the Roundtable 2 for Assistant Coaches Show.
All right. Thank you.
Mike Harper has been our guest today, the assistant coach for both men's and women's soccer. We also want to thank Ian Lulia, and Seth Fisherson for appearing as well, members of the men's soccer team. And as always, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back again next week when we hope to have Kelly Hartley on and discuss the end of the women's volleyball season. And also a quick reminder, Saturday afternoon, College 56 Sports, men's basketball. It is an exhibition game, but it is against St. Joseph's. The Pumas, a former member of the GLVC, is IPFW taking on a member of the GLVC. And I believe, John, if I'm correct, it is a 3 p.m. tip-off. I hope it's 1 p.m. Thank you very much. Boy, it's nice to have a guy who saves my tail. 1 p.m. tip-off. If you can't make it here at the Gates Sports Center, please tune in to College 56 Sports as we bring you IPFW men's basketball. Again, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Until next week, this is Mike Moss saying, have a great week and go Dons.